Great Zimbabwe is the temple of Ashtate. The reason why it's not the Great Zimbabwe is not identified to any race, to any people, to any religion is because when we talk about Ashtate, Ashtate is the consort or wife of Baal or El when we look at the Canaanite pantheon. So the Canaanites, Phoenicians, inhabited Zimbabwe. This was their home. I am a descendant of the Phoenicians. Although my parents, my great-grandparents, were born and raised in Zimbabwe, they did not have the information or the access to the information that I've been privileged with at this time. For example, before I started getting all this information through Ashtate, I don't know who Ashtate was, but the name Asherah, Ashtoreth, it kept on popping up. I don't know how else to describe it. So I then did a DNA ancestry test. The DNA ancestry test went on and showed that my trace ancestry goes all the way back to Cyprus. And when we look at the Phoenicians and the Canaanites, that's pretty much where they originated, Cyprus, Cypriot. So how it went was that there are several races or civilizations that inhabit Zimbabwe, mainly Egyptian, Phoenician civilization, Canaanite, blah, blah, blah. So when we look at the Shona or the history of the Shona right now, there's so much information in my head, but putting it into form, I don't know. So the Shona, they originated from what we call Bahari Druku, right? When the Shona came into Tanganyika, when they came into Zimbabwe, they were identified as those that came from Bahari Druku, meaning the Red Sea, those that lived along the Red Sea, which is pretty much Egypt, Sudan, Khartoum, Yemen, Southern Arabians. Those are the ones that came here, and they started their dynasties or continued their dynasties, such as the Monomotapa empires. And then we also have people that originated from Mesopotamia. These are the original Zimbabweans that built the ruins that we see. And the reason why no one is able to claim that, oh, it's these people that built these ruins, or it's this race that built the ruins, is because when the Cypriots, the Phoenicians, came all the way to this part of the world, it was mostly in search of gold. So when they got here, they civilized the place. They built temples on top of temples that already existed, primarily Great Zimbabwe. Which is why when you go to the Great Zimbabwe, it wasn't just built one time. It was built in several stages. Each floor has its separate, has its own history, has its own time frame, has its own civilization. So they say Great Zimbabwe was built in a wedding cake style, just like many of the ruins that we have here. But why don't we know the people that built them? I can tell you why. So when my ancestors came here, obviously they were not Negroid. As you can see, like me, I'm born and raised here, but people think I'm not from here, and if I'm not, catch the drift. So when they came to this part of the globe, it had been thousands of years. It had been thousands of years. So what then happened? This is the unspoken history of this country. I'll tell you why we don't know who built the ruins. It's because when the Phoenicians, Canaanites were living here, and they had their dynastic names, they had their, like I said, the Monomotapas and the many other beautiful empires, the Nkuni, or what we call the Ndebele, the Zulu, came all the way from the south. Because when we migrated from the top, from the north together, coming down to the south, we stopped in Tanganyika/Zimbabwe. They went all the way, and they were stopped by the Atlantic Ocean in the southern part of Africa. So the time came when they started going back up, and when they were coming back up, that was when they were plundering everything that was Phoenician made, as they called it foreign. If they saw me, they would say, I'm a foreigner. I need to get out of this place. And I'd say, okay, where do you want me to go? I've been here. My ancestors has been here for the typical Rhodesian story, right? Where do you want me to go? It became a massacre, a war between these Semitics, these ancient Semitics, between these Negroid or Kafirs of that time who were identified as Nguni or the Zulu. So after they did that, they basically hijacked the dynasties of these ancient Semitics. Their goal was to erase the history of the Semitics in this country, and they were successful at it. Um, so what's funny is that when the British then came, or the Portuguese came, especially the British, I thank them. In as much as I try to say, oh, they're colonizers, these are the people that helped capture this history. Do you get what I'm saying? Because without them coming here and excavating and doing what they did, I wouldn't have much of this information or this insight that I have through them and through Ashtati.